is incremism to raism, and I shall stay with this party for a while.
What are you now doing in the United States?
We are now doing recruitment drives in the United States.
Good evening. My guest obviously doesn't need much of an introduction. Suffice it to say that when you say the words Black Power, his image immediately comes to mind. Or, for that matter, if you remember the words, hell no, we won't go, from the Vietnam War era, you'll also remember him. But there always was and still is much more to Kwame Ture than that. So now you'll renew your relationship with Kwame Ture, as I will mine. Good to have you aboard.
My brother, it's good to be here.
Many people do not know how long ago you changed your name.
At least it was in the middle 70s, exactly. Yes.
That you took the name Kwame Ture. They also may not be familiar with the fact that you live in Conakry, Guinea, and may not know what you do there. Do you talk about that?
Well, I've been living there since 1969, and just working to do the best we can to organize our people so that Africa can be unified.
You have, in more recent years, been affiliated with the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. Are you still affiliated?
I am still affiliated with the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, which was founded by Kwame Nkrumah, whose objective is Pan-Africanism, the total liberation and unification of Africa under scientific socialism, and whose ideology is Nkrumism to raism. And I shall stay with this party for a while.
What are you now doing in the United States?
We are now doing recruitment drives in the United States, party and recruiting people who are conscious, those who seriously want to work for their people, not talk about working for their people, those who truly want to transform their wish for the people's unity into concrete reality by hard work. So our party is doing a recruitment drive. We go around the college campuses and try to recruit students who are serious to come and work for their people.
This is a particularly important time for you to be in the United States because the United States is at war. And the last time the United States was involved in a major war, the Vietnam War, yours was one of the loudest voices in protest against that war. And many people felt that maybe black people did not participate enough in that anti-war movement. However, in the new anti-war movement as a result of the Persian Gulf War, black people seem to be in it earlier and in much larger numbers than they ever were during the Vietnam War. To what do you attribute that?
Well, in the first place, I'm not quite sure, because during the Vietnam War, the African participation was clear in political direction. The most radical elements were by the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, but hell no, we won't go, seeking to destroy the draft to weaken American imperialism, which was effectively done. And in terms of the liberal movement, the moral determination was ensured by Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. So the African masses gave proper and correct direction to the anti-war movement. Of course, it is to be understood that in this time around, with the experience that we've had during the Vietnam War, we will play even more crucial roles in this struggle than we did in the previous struggle. And here, our struggle will be more to stop the spontaneity, to transform the peace movement from reacting to American invasions to aggressively going against American capitalism. The anti-war movement will be transformed through the participation of the African masses into an anti-capitalist and anti-Zionist movement.
The United States says it is at war in the Persian Gulf because Saddam Hussein conducted a brutal invasion of Kuwait that was in violation of international law, and that the United Nations set him a deadline of January the 15th to remove his troops from Kuwait. He did not obey that deadline, and that with the United Nations sanctions, the United States, at the head of a coalition, has decided to remove Saddam Hussein and his troops from Kuwait. What is your own analysis of why the U.S. is at war in the Persian Gulf?
In the first place, the United States of America cannot speak of going to attack anyone for annexing any state. America was founded on the annihilation of over 300 Indian nations in this country. They were totally annihilated after American capitalism had signed treaties with them. So for them to tell me whose country is based on genocide, that they're going to protect people, that's not serious. Unfortunately, the people in America, because the capitalist press, present company notwithstanding, because the capitalist press seeks to have the people react on instincts. You know, the Viet Cong's a communist, let's get him. Saddam Hussein is a monster, let's wipe him out. They think on these one-lines, instinctive actualities, they can go at it. But it's pathetic. The people in America, even those young men who are in Saudi Arabia today, getting ready to give their blood, they don't know what is Kuwait. They don't know what is Iraq. They don't know if Kuwait was part of Iraq, when it was. They don't know how it was taken away from Iraq. What were the conditions to bring it back? Why this process has taken so long? They don't know what is Zionism. They don't know what its role is in there. They don't know what the state of Israel. They know absolutely nothing except Saddam Hussein is a monster and let's get him. So we can't take these things seriously. One thing we know, America's a greedy country. That's for sure. That's one thing we know. And America will do anything for greed. And it will send its young men to die for oil. That's clear.
So that is what you feel the reason is for the United States being in the Persian Gulf? Simple, straight up oil.
No, it's not what I believe. It's a fact. It's a fact. The only reason American priests, why are they not in Azania, South Africa, where racist pigs are shooting down our children every day, have taken our land, completely taken our land, disfranchised from our land on our own land? Why don't they attack the clerk? I mean, whom are they playing?
You mentioned those young men who are in the Persian Gulf and who may die. About 30% of the males are black, almost 50% of the females are black, and that poses a dilemma for many people who are against this war. On the one hand, black people have always fought courageously for America when asked to do so. On the other hand, there are a lot of black people in opposition to this war, and many of them have relatives, and because so many reservists have been called up, there are a lot of black fathers and mothers now in the Persian Gulf, and people have a lot of problems trying to distinguish between the policy and men and women who carry it out.
Well, I don't think so. You had the same problem in Vietnam. There are two sides to every war, a just side and unjust side. Either you want America to win, or you want America to be defeated because she's incorrect. If she does, those who fight for America must also be defeated, that's clear. But we're going to see a lot of different things in this war in terms of resistance and protest movement. You know, they just talk on television about their new tricks. We got a lot of new tricks for them. There's going to be a lot of desertion. A lot of Africans are going to desert because they're going to see what business are they, why are they fighting for, what are they fighting, why are they giving their blood in the sand. Why? We Africans have given our blood, as you have correctly pointed out, in more wars. We've given more of our blood out of proportion to our number than any other ethnic group in this country. And our blood is shed inside this country by racist pigs such as the CIA, the Ku Klux Klan, and the police more than any other ethnic group in this country. What are we fighting for?
Another dilemma that some people have is with the fact that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is a black man. And many of those people look with pride at the fact that groups such as the Tuskegee Airmen and others serve to integrate the armed forces, and that is to merely gain access to officers' clubs and the like, which they weren't allowed to. And they feel that Colin Powell has come about as a result of the efforts of those people. So on the one hand, they feel a certain pride at his accomplishment, and on the other hand, have some questions about his role in the war. What would you say to those people?
Well, this is unfortunate because, again, they're not doing serious analysis, just going on the one-liners, you know. The only reason, well, anyway, no African in this country has made individual advancement unless through the effort of mass struggle. And we've had no advancement without bloodshed in this mass struggle, whether it be violent or non-violent protest. For example, just to sit in a filthy 5 and 10 cent store, we must shed our blood. To ride a bus, even though we pay like everybody else,
Hello, greetings, everyone. Happy day to you. We hope that you are well. Hope that you are reaching your highest level of mental, physical, and spiritual strength today. And we're glad that you're joining us for this week's episode of Our Ancestors' Voices, a weekly program sponsored by the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Thank you for being here today for this very important topic, healthy alternatives to the holiday madness. Every year, in November or December, this backward society we live in experiences more suicides than at any other time of the year. And the mental health experts have for years attributed this to the deep depression that people feel around these so-called holidays. And of course, these holidays are not rooted in collectivism and people coming together to support one another. Instead, it's manufactured based on the multinational corporations and their desire to get us to spend all this money buying their products. And so that's a lot of what drives this. That's really the primary thing that drives it. And people's inability to function on that level, and that being the gauge of what value people present in this society, causes this deep depression. So we're going to talk about some alternatives to having to feel like you're forced to succumb to this madness today. And I apologize for the background noise. My pit bull is in here and she is doing what she does so well, wreak havoc. We'll try to work around that. But I'm glad that you're here, and we want to give honor, of course, to the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere. Of course, this past Thursday was the Thanksgiving holiday, and we were able to have a very nice ceremony here at our house to commemorate the indigenous peoples and to try to encourage people to reflect on understanding what we really should be thankful for. And in my humble view, the most important thing we should be thankful for are those people who sacrificed to allow us to be in the condition that we're in today. Your condition may not be what you want it to be. It may not be, you may not get where you want it to go, but you're certainly not in the condition that you used to be. And that is solely the result of those nameless, faceless millions of people who struggled against injustice and fought so that we could continue to advance towards our Shimaranga, towards our freedom and our liberation. So we always give honor to that. And the indigenous people, of course, are a significant portion of that due to their hospitality for 500, going on 550 years, and their continued humanistic struggle to regain sovereignty and to regain respect. And so we stand with them in that struggle. And of course, our African ancestors, I'm wearing the hat today, which I wear often. It's the hat popularized by Amilcar Cabral, that great Pan-Africanist revolutionary from Guinea-Bissau. And my thoughts today are on the people in Guinea-Bissau. If you haven't been able to pay attention, the people of Guinea-Bissau have suffered another military coup d'etat this past week. And the results of this happened because the Embalo government, which was the neo-colonialist government that had been in power in Guinea-Bissau since for a couple of years now, in 2023, the African Party for Independence of Guinea-Bissau, the PAIGC, and the Terra-Rankin Coalition, they defeated Embalo in the neo-colonialist government in the elections. All the world advisors confirmed that, and the Embalo government invalidated the elections. Brother Domingos Piera, the president of the PAIGC, became the president of the National Assembly, the legislature in Guinea-Bissau, in 2023. And he actually won the election to become president by close to 100,000 votes. But that very valid election was invalidated by the Embalo regime, and the candidates from the coalition who won election in the legislature, the National Assembly, were denied the ability to be seated. And this struggle was waged for the last couple of years. And this past Sunday, this past Sunday, the 23rd, there was another election. And in that election, before that election happened, the PAIGC and Brother Pierre were outlawed by Embalo's regime from participating. So the PAIGC and the other entities of the coalition, the Progressive Coalition, endorsed the candidate Diaz. And again, it looked as if Diaz won the election against Embalo. And instead of that being allowed to play out, the coup d'etat happened where the military took control. Shots were fired in the capital city of Bissau, and many people were arrested, including Comrade Brother President Domingos Piedra of the PAIGC, whose condition had been unknown. And he was the African who handed me this hat that I'm wearing right now when I was in Guinea-Bissau in 2023, when he gave me my membership to the PAIGC. So thoughts are heavy with our comrade family over there. And we wish them safety. We wish the people of Guinea-Bissau safety. And we know that these setbacks are temporary. We read the capitalist media accounts. Oh, they've had nothing but military coups in Guinea-Bissau since independence in 1974. Oh, the country is the cocaine hub for getting drugs into Europe, blah, 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 blah. Regardless of what the hell they say, and all these setbacks, the masses of people in Guinea-Bissau are speaking up. They are on the streets as we speak. And this latest setback will not be the end of the story for our people in Guinea-Bissau or our people in Africa or any of our people within the African world or all of humanity. These are just steps in the struggle that are being waged before we gain the level of organization needed to run right over these people's chests. So we stay with the people of Guinea-Bissau today, without question. And we just want to say our Ancestors' Voices is sponsored again by the All African People's Revolutionary Party, AAPRP. And the AAPRP is a revolutionary, independent, mass, Pan-African political party with its base in Africa. And our objective is Pan-Africanism, which we define correctly as one unified socialist Africa. We see that as the solution. We have a unified socialist Africa. We eliminate the ability of neo-colonialism to be dominant in Africa. And by doing that, we eliminate these types of scenarios which are playing out right now in Guinea-Bissau and all over Africa. And so our work to achieve Pan-Africanism is outlined in Kwame Nkrumah's Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare. His own government in Ghana being overthrown by a CIA, Central Intelligence Agency-backed coup d'etat in February 1966. And Nkrumah saw the coming of the neo-colonialist stage, and he wrote this book as a guide for us to fight through it. And that's exactly what we're doing, following the analysis Nkrumah provided in the handbook. Organizing in Africa, uniting all of the revolutionary Pan-Africanist formations on the continent. You know, the organizations like the PAIGC in Guinea-Bissau, their task is organizing in Guinea-Bissau. The Amilcar Cabral Ideological School in Nigeria, their task is organizing the Africans in Nigeria. The Pan-African Union of Sierra Leone, their task is organizing Africans in Sierra Leone. The Pan-Africanist Congress, of Azania, the Azanian People's Organization, their tasks are organizing the Africans in Azania, South Africa, so on, so forth. The task of the All African People's Revolutionary Party is to bring all of those Pan-African formations together into one body. We are not just a part of any one African country. We're a part of all of Africa. So we are the umbrella force to bring all of these entities together into one unified worldwide fighting force, uniting with Africans all over the world based upon our work that we're conducting in Europe, throughout the Americas, and of course, all over our homeland, Africa. So that's what we're doing. And Our Ancestors' Voices is a program hosted each week by myself, Ajamu, and my daughter, Shakura, Dr. Shakura Umi. That's both of our last names. And we are both organizers within the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Today, for the second week in a row, I'll be coming to you by myself because, as I mentioned last week, Shakura is headed to the Venceremos Brigade African, Palestinian, and Indigenous delegation to Cuba later in December. And so she is undergoing the study process and orientation to participate in that very critical delegation. And so she will be back with us next week. But for now, we'll move forward and we'll talk about holidays and colonized oppressed people. Holidays and colonized oppressed peoples. So I think I'm having trouble with my screen, so I'll try to make this happen. Give me just a second here. Not sure what's going on here. Hold on. We will make it happen. Okay. Technical difficulties. Okay. I'll get this together. Hold on just a second, and we will correct this problem and get back to the program. All right. I hope that people can see it now and that it's visible. Oh, I'm just having all kind of problems here. Okay, let's see what we're doing here to get this to show on the screen the way I want it to. All right. Okay. So again, we're talking about how to get this started, holidays and oppressed people. The capitalist system was never built on hard work and faith. Like we know this, right? It wasn't built on that. It was built solely on theft, murder, and lies. That's how it was built. It was built on stealing this land from the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere. It was built on stealing our African ancestors. It was built on stealing the labor of poor white people. You know, some of the biggest people who've been pimped by this system have been poor white people, working class white people. They've been pimped viciously by this system. The only challenge with them is that a lot of them refuse to believe it. They continue to believe in this backward system. A lot of our people do too. So I'm not just calling out European people, but this is the strength of this capitalist system is it continues to get people to, at best, believe in it and be committed to it and loyal to it, and at worst, be ambivalent towards it, be uh, just ignore it and just continue to function on an individual level with your own life. So this is a problem, but that's clearly the history of this system. And as a result of that, within this capitalist system, every institution within this system serves a single purpose. And that purpose is advancing capitalism. I don't care what the institution claims to be. If you talk about uh, faith institutions, I'll show you where the overwhelming majority of them function in a way that's designed to uplift capitalism. And how can I say that? Because they're not talking about anything to challenge oppression of people. They're supposed to stand with the masses of people and be for justice. What good is a faith if it's not for justice? But yet they say nothing about fighting for justice, and they're not involved in any way in any fight for justice, none whatsoever. So you can't say that they're really following the life of Jesus Christ or Allah or Judea or Yahweh or anybody. They're following the God that they truly believe in, capitalism. Education in this society is not designed to uplift human beings. It's designed to promote a narrative that this is the freest and most democratic country in human history, and the best thing that you can ever do is get a degree and get a job working to advance the system. And that's why the majority of people who go through advanced education, that's what they end up doing. So none of this is about doing anything except advancing this system. And the holidays that exist here are a part of this reality. They're not separate from that. The whole purpose of these holidays are to uphold and advance capitalism. That's the role that these holidays play. And that's why the individualism, the materialism, all of those things are advanced so much. Like they start advertising for Christmas in October, even though they're advertising for Halloween and Thanksgiving. Those holidays combined don't compare to the number of commerce that's exchanged in December for this so-called Miss Christ holiday. So they start advertising for that as early as they could. They'd start in February if they could get away with it without turning you off. And so they do that because they want you to they want to feed into the remote control conditioning that they have implored upon all of us all year for our entire lives, that okay, I got to spend money, I got to buy presents for 10, 15 people, I got to spend money I really don't have, I have to do all this because if I don't, I'm not a good human being. And so that's what they advance with this backward narrative. And so that's why it's so dominant in terms of how it manifests itself here. That's the reason why it's done that way. And when we look at capitalism and holidays, the whole point of it is that every holiday in capitalism is about what I just said. It's about perpetuating the lie that capitalism is built on Judeo European so called Christian values. That's why you hear these idiots talking about this all the time. This is a white Christian country. And a lot of us get mad when they say that. And I don't understand why we get mad at them saying that. It's true. That is what this country was built. This country was not, I mean, I understand it. Like people want to assert what rights they believe they have. They really want to assert their humanity, as they should. But the problem is that the way that people manifest doing that is to believe that the best way to assert humanity is to force integration into the capitalist system. That's how it's interpreted by many well-meaning people. And what we would say to that is that why do you want to assert yourself into a system based on theft, murder, and genocide? Why wouldn't you want to build something better than that? That has better values, that's humanistic, that's collective. Why are you trying to integrate yourself into, even as Dr. Martin Luther King said, I've integrated my people into a burning building. Why are you still uh, almost 60 years after he made those words, still trying to do the same thing? That's the question that you have to ask yourself. Because this country, the people that run it, their vision, even if you look at their constitution that they wrote, and so many of us are so confused. We're constantly talking about our constitution. This country needs to live up to its constitution. It's lived up to its constitution. What the hell are you talking about? African people are 3/5 of a human being in your constitution. That's what it says today. They never edited it out. It's still there today. Read the goddamn worthless toilet paper document and you'll see it there. So stop sounding like a fool talking about, well, it's not living up to the Constitution. Yes, it is. It doesn't even mention the indigenous people, and it mentions us just that we're a portion of a human being. So they are absolutely living up to their constitution in terms of how they treat all of us. You're the one that's confused. You're the one that's living in the fantasy. These people are doing exactly what they said they would do 300 years ago. They're not confused. So they never intended on building this country so that we could participate in it. And I don't know why people take that and think that their primary mission is to force them to see that they're wrong. Why do you even want to be with a type of people who have that type of history and are doubling down on it today? I'm not talking about, and don't run out of here lying, talk about he don't like white people. I work with more white people than you ever will. But I work with the right kind of white people that understand that this is an empire and that it needs to be destroyed. I don't work with the liberal, bourgeoisie type white people that you uh, scratch when nothing's hitching for. I don't even deal with those kind of white people. So this is what we're talking about here: is that this country was built on backward values. It was built on values of exploitation and oppression. And this so-called Miss Christ Day, or what they call Christmas, that in and of itself is a lie. First off, you can't find a single biblical scholar. I'm talking about people who have spent their entire lives studying the Bible. I'm not talking about Reverend Pigsfoot who told you something and you listened to. I heard somebody said something today that made a lot of sense. This sister was on social media and she said, "Why is it that people need absolutely no evidence at all to believe a lie, but they will deny all the legitimate evidence in the world to deny the truth?" And that is absolutely true. And so, this is this is what we're talking about here, is that this so-called Christmas holiday is supposed to be about celebrating the life of Jesus, but not a single biblical scholar has concluded that Jesus was born in December or on December 25th. There isn't a clear delineation for when Jesus the man was born, but some of the scholars say September, some say March. No one says December 25th. The December 25th holiday and no biblical scholars dispute what I'm about to say. The December 25th holiday was created with one purpose, and that was to ensure that there would be a big uh, holiday at the end of the year that would advance the exchange of commerce to help the business world. That's where December 25th came from. That is the only reason why December 25th was designated the birthday of Jesus Christ. It has nothing to do with history and reality. That's a fact. So that's lie number one. Lie number two is that by commemorating this buying of presents and all this stuff, you're somehow commemorating the birth of Jesus. It has nothing to do with the birth of Jesus. I mean, even if he was born on December 25th, none of that stuff would have anything at all to do with the birth of Jesus. Instead, it has everything to do with, again, advancing their agenda of getting you to uh, spend money you don't have. Credit card debt in this country is already rising tremendously because people have to rely on their credit cards just to make their monthly expenses, which is an unfortunate way to have to live. And so, because people are doing that in large scale, now they have this added pressure to buy all these presents that they cannot afford. And, it's like the thing is, I feel that pressure because I haven't celebrated this holiday since I was a teenager. And everybody that I know knows that I don't celebrate it. But yet every year, people, well-intentioned people, they're buying presents, so they buy me, and I feel the pressure like I got to do something for them because they did something for me, and I don't like that because I don't want to participate in that. I don't want to have to feel that at all, and but then I don't want to not respond to them because they're good people in my life. But that's the kind of pressure that is imposed on people, whether it's intentional or not, is irrelevant. It's the type of pressure that's imposed on people for many people who are, I mean, I could buy presents if I wanted to, but I don't want to do that. But many people are not able to do that. And it creates that type of depression that I mentioned early on. So that's why I call it the lie of celebrating the individual self, materialism, and the way they perpetuate it is that by doing that, it somehow equals love and success. If you can buy thousands, hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars worth of presents, that means you're a successful person. And it doesn't mean that at all. Because number one, as I mentioned, the majority of the people are spending this money they don't have on these presents, number one. And then number two, a lot of these people that people buy presents for, they can't even stand these people. They got to sit there with them. They can't even. The minute you experienced it just Thursday, you sitting there with people you can't even stand. You can't even have a discussion with, And I mean, we had this ceremony here Thursday. There were about 12, 13 people here in my house. And I mean, a lot of these people were, they weren't children. There were children there, but there were people older than me there, and I could tell the things we were talking about in the ceremony they had never heard in their life, and it wasn't like any groundbreaking material, you all. It was just very basic things. Like we should be thankful for the people who really made sacrifices for us, the people in the movement for us. That's not controversial. That's not anything that can be debated. That's absolutely true. That's objectively true. But people, like, it was too much for them. Like that tells you where we are in this society. And the fact that it's too much for them, what that tells me is that we got to do more of that. We haven't done enough of it. That's why it's too much for people. And every year, I have different ideas about how to do that stuff. I'm constantly thinking. It did it different this year than before. I did a presentation this year, brief. It was only 5 minutes because I know people can't handle much, but brief. But at least it was that. Before, we just really didn't even do that. Maybe next year we'll do something different. But the point is, we're trying to do something that manifests values of humanity and not just go along with the okie doke. Too many people just go along to get along with the okie doke. Well, don't say anything. You should say so. Otherwise, what the hell good are you if you just go along with this okie doke and this oppression? So, you think about thanks taking. You know, this empire was built and maintained by hard work and devotion to Jesus. That's what they condition us to believe. And I'm just thankful for my family. I'm just thankful for my life. I'm not at all thankful for the people who shed blood so that I can be in this position. So if I'm not thankful to them, I'm really not thankful to anything of any value. That's what we should be thinking about. That was the message that we gave here last Thursday. If you're not thankful for the people who, I'm thankful to Jesus. Okay, that's great. But what about those people who lived in the image of Jesus and sacrificed their life? Isn't that what you all who are Christians say that Jesus did? Right? In April, in March or April, whenever the Catholics decide to make the holiday of Easter, isn't that what happens on Good Friday? Jesus was crucified, right? Why was Jesus crucified? Because Jesus stood up to the forces of injustice. We've studied the Bible. That's what it was all about. That's what the parables are all about, you all. So if you're saying you live in the life of Jesus, then you should automatically respect the people who lived in his image. I've seen so many chicken foot pastors, you couldn't pay the price like Jesus paid the price. And I've told many of them and talking to them, like, what the hell are you talking about? What kind of price did Malcolm X pay? He paid the ultimate price. He was crucified like Jesus. Fred Hampton was crucified. Amilcar Cabral was crucified. Tatia Silas was crucified. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was crucified. Bunchy Carter and John Huggins crucified. Patrice Lumumba crucified. Imbalia Kamara crucified. What the hell are you talking about? There's all kinds of people who have paid that price. There's all kinds of people who live in that image. So that's what we should be talking about, at least some of the time. It shouldn't have to hear it at 50, 60, 70 years old. And it's the first time you ever heard it in your life because your whole life, all you've heard is, well, Thanksgiving is built on loving Jesus and being thankful. I mean, get that shit away from me. And I'll say it right now, any punk ass God that represents that, I don't want to be affiliated with that. Send me to hell right now. Kiss my black ass. I don't want to have nothing to do with you. If you're God and that's the best you can do, get the hell away from me. I will fight you to the last breath and walk to hell. Shit, I'd rather be in hell than be in that kind of contradictory environment. But that's because I live my life without fear. So I look forward to death without fear. Where a lot of you're so afraid to die. And if you really love Jesus, how could you love Jesus and be afraid of death? That's a total contradiction to what the whole faith is supposed to be about. I'm not saying that you're trying to get to death, but I'm saying that you got to think about that. Like, what is the point if you don't have any courage to stand up against injustice? You're certainly not listening to what Jesus told you your life should be about. The Fourth of July, another one of these so-called institutions. This has always been a free and democratic country. Come on now. You had the indigenous people being annihilated when your Constitution was written. You had our people being enslaved. My family's from Louisiana. That meant that my family was enslaved. Louisiana was a slave state, if you don't know that. So the 4th of July has absolutely nothing to do with me. The Emancipation Proclamation wasn't even signed until 87 years after July 4th, 1776. And I know the Emancipation Proclamation didn't free us. We're still not free. But even if you, for the sake of argument, say that that's what did it, that's clearly not what happened in this country. So I'm not a fool. My mother and father raised no fool. There's no way I'm celebrating no 4th of July. That wasn't for me. They have never, this country has never been about us. And you are trying to force the round peg into the square hole. We're the round peg and America is the square hole. It is never going to fit. It is never going to fit. Veterans Day, that the U.S. military has fought for anything besides protecting the economic interests of multinational capitalism. That's always what the U.S. military fights. It's never been anywhere else. You can't name a single country where the U.S. military was there fighting for the people to be free in that country. They've never even done that here. When our people have stood up and engaged in urban rebellions in this country to fight against the injustices of this country, they send the National Guard, which is a part of the U.S. military, to combat us here. So not even in this country has the U.S. military stood up for justice and forward human progress. Their job is to defend capitalism, to protect the institutions of capitalism. And if your father, your mother, your brother, your sister, you, whoever participated in that, then you just need to face that. Don't expect me to live this lie talking about you're a hero. Thank you for your go to hell with that shit. You know, I mean, I understand people need jobs. So just say that. Let's stop all this bullshit and be honest about it. I needed a job, so I went in the US military. I didn't really get a chance to think about what that might mean for me having to do. I just needed a job and some stability. If you said that, I would have nothing but love and respect. But don't come at me with this bullshit. I fought for my country. You didn't fight for me. You didn't fight for nobody out here. You needed a job and you win a job and then they told you to go fight and you didn't have the courage to tell them to kiss your ass. That's the truth. There's nothing wrong with that. You're not a hero for doing that. Sorry, you're not. The heroes are the people who said, hell no, we won't go. Those are the heroes that risk going to jail. Muhammad Ali gave up millions of dollars fighting to stand on justice and not join the U.S. military. That's a hero. At that time, that's what a hero looks like. Kwame Ture burned his draft card in front of the U.S. induction center, risking immediate imprisonment. That's a hero. If you don't understand that, there's no hope for you. If you put on that uniform, you did it. Just tell the truth. And if you don't tell the truth, don't expect us to uphold your lie. We're not going to do it. So the recovery process from all that nonsense is that if it's not unhealthy, you should connect with your family and friends around these imperialist holidays. A lot of people, especially activists, have this, and I'll say especially white activists, I've seen it. It's not really something that exists in the African activist community, but especially with white activists, they're divorced from their families. And a lot of that stems around a lot of the white activists are from the LGBTQ communities, and European families, are hard against that when they oppose it. I'm not saying all of them oppose it, but the ones that do are hard against it. And they disown their children, just like they disown their children for marrying us. I mean, just barbaric people, a lot of them. Whereas in African communities, I mean, we're far from perfect and homophobia certainly exists, but you rarely hear of African families disowning their children because they're LGBTQ. In fact, for the most part, our folks that are LGBTQ exist within our social circles. It's not always smooth. It's not always as comfortable as it needs to be, but you don't see us going to the extreme that a lot of European families do. So because of that, a lot of European activists are estranged from their families, and that's understandable. But still, I think everybody, if you can, you should make some connection with your family. I'm not saying if it's unhealthy. A lot of you have people in your family who did unspeakable things to you. I'm not saying that you reach out to those beasts, but I'm saying if it's possible and if it's healthy and safe for you, you should see a part of your work as requiring you to reach out to those folks and interact with them if you can. Because it's not good, number one, for you to be isolated. That's not healthy. And then number two, these days, as backward as they are excellent opportunities for us to educate our family and our friends. They are. So make that required effort. And in doing that, in order for you to do something worthwhile, you have to make sure you understand the history of imperialism. You have to understand the history of this country and this world. You got to understand that. You can't be confused about that. Otherwise, you won't be able to have a positive impact. For example, if you don't know the imperialist history of the U.S. military, you can't strategize around challenging Veterans Day, July 4th, etc. I can do that because I know the history. Anybody come to me and say the U.S. has fought in wars for freedom and democracy, I can shut that down in seconds. The U.S. went to Vietnam for freedom and democracy. Yeah, that's crazy as hell to say that. The government in Vietnam, the Diem brothers, those folks, they were supported by the Kennedy administration in the early 60s. Those are the most oppressive regimes on earth. The U.S. has consistently supported, is always on the wrong side of history, supported Papa Doc Duvalier in Haiti and Baby Doc Duvalier, some of the most oppressive dictators in human history. Ferdinand Marcos in the Philippines, oppressive dictator. Mobutu in the Congo, oppressive dictator. So the U.S. is never anywhere to fight for freedom and democracy. You got to be out of your mind. They will say that they're against terrorism while they support these terrorists in Florida who are engaging in terrorist acts against the socialist revolution in Cuba with your tax dollars. So you have to know all that. Because if you do, you can shut them down quickly. If you don't, you're the one that'll look like a fool. So then also these backward institutions, they happen at the same time every year. So you can start planning now on how you can do something different. You maybe can't do it in a couple of weeks, but you can make a calendar now for everything that comes up next year. You can figure out, okay, they got Easter coming, what am I going to do? They got Memorial Day coming, what am I going to do? 4th of July, what am I going to do? Labor Day, what am I going to do? Right? Thanksgiving, Miss Christ, what am I going to do? You can start planning now about what you can do to try to do something different instead of just sitting there at the table quiet and your uncle has a couple of drinks in him, your auntie has a couple of drinks in them, your mama, your daddy, whoever the hell it is, has a few drinks in them, and they start saying racist stuff, they start saying homophobic stuff, and you just sit there with your mouth full of cranberry sauce because you don't know what to do. Instead of putting yourself in that position, you can start planning now so you can be prepared to make a contribution and break that chain of events. You can do it. There's no reason why you can't, other than you're just not willing to make the effort. So make the effort. So here are some healthy ideas to help you, hopefully. Again, sit down and think about next year. Take time to think through what your family, friends, etc. are really trying to accomplish at these so-called hollow days. Like, for instance, Miss Christ or Christmas. What is the goal there? When your family gets together, what are you coming together to do? Is it just to see each other? See each other for what? And I know a lot of you may not think about this too deep. So you're like, oh, what do you mean for what? We're getting together to see each other. Okay, learn how to think a little deeper, right? What are you trying to see each other for? Are you wanting to see each other so that you could cuss each other out? No, of course not. So you're coming together for what? Well, what is the purpose of families and friends and support networks? What is the purpose of that? Just what I just said, to provide support mechanisms for you. So that should be the goal of getting together. So obviously, most of these relationships are extremely superficial because that's the norm in the capitalist system. They're extremely superficial. We don't really connect with each other in healthy ways. We talk at each other. We don't even listen to each other. So the whole purpose of this should be to try to figure out how to spend this time engaging in activities that help us get to know each other better so that we can build trust. There are so many games that you could do to do that. There's one called the social identity exercise. There's another called the flower power exercise. These are things, I haven't even done these things yet with my family because it takes time. Now, I think next year we'll be ready to do that. We've been doing things the last couple of years. We'll be ready to do it. So if you want to know more about those, you should reach out and share with you the models. They're very positive activities. I've facilitated them dozens of times, and they work very well in terms of helping people get to know each other, creating a positive environment. Before people get to drinking and all that nonsense, you can facilitate something where people can feel good about themselves and each other. So do that, right? Collective interaction, building deeper and more meaningful relationships, creating ways to do that, exploring the idea of presenting an alternative approach that's designed to bring out more of the positive ideas while backseating the more materialist and inhumane practices. So, for example, why not consider suggesting, hey, you all, instead of us buying presents for each other this year, Why don't we instead pool money and do something significant to support somebody? Like maybe there is a child that we know that has done the work to qualify for college, but doesn't have the money to pay the application fees, or doesn't have the money to pay initial fees, or a kid wants to go on the HBCU tour and doesn't have the money to go. Why don't we pool all of our money that we're going to spend on these presents and support this child going on the HBCU tour? Support this family getting this medical procedure done for their child or the spouse or whatever. Do something like that. I mean, I guarantee you, if you could get people past the egoism, because that's all it is, past the individualism, because that's all it is, and get people to have a vision of performing and act like that, and you're able to get them to do it, everybody will feel so much better doing something like that than buying these worthless ass presents, seeing people not even appreciate it, going through all that backward materialism. You'll feel much better than you will doing that. And it will bring you all closer together, because nothing brings people together more than engaging in positive, selfless activity together. That's the best way to come together. So why not do that? Why not talk to the family about doing that? Maybe that's something I might try. I just came up with that right now. So maybe I'll try to do that next year and try to encourage people to do it. And if everybody doesn't want to do it, then do it with the people who are willing to do it. And I guarantee you that'll influence the people that didn't want to do it. Because most of the time, if you think about it, if you watch the people around you, they do the same thing with the same people all the time. Very few people live their lives outside of that model. I live my life outside that model. I'm constantly engaging with people I just met, constantly. That's the work of an activist. That's the work of a revolutionary activist for sure. I'm constantly meeting new people and engaging with them. I spend my life doing that. But most people just do the same thing with the same group of people all the time. And because of that, any suggestion that falls outside of that realm, it intimidates them. So you're going to have to work with people to get them to want to do it. That's why I'm saying it's probably too late to try to do something like that for this year. But if you start now, you can facilitate trying to do it for next year, and it'll bring real meaning. You want to talk about being consistent with the teachings of Christ, it'll bring real meaning to that instead of this artificial, fake, bullshit type of stuff that's happening right now. So just think about that. And then you can also involve your family and friends. You don't have to come to them with all the ideas. You can say, hey, I want to talk to you all about something. Instead of us doing this the way we've done it, why don't we come up with something collective to make a contribution? Why can't we do that? I bet you if you did that, you might be surprised at how many people are like, yeah, I think that's a great idea. And do it based on principles that surround you. So maybe it can be battered women, for example. Well, let's do something supportive for women escaping a violent environment, weave or something to that effect. I used to volunteer for them. I used to go to the houses with the women to get their stuff while the man was there to keep him from jumping on the women. I used to do that all the time. There's all kind of ways, and they didn't have a program for that here. I went to them and said, hey, I'd like to volunteer. I have these skills. Do you need some? We were like, we really need somebody to do that, because we call the police and they oftentimes don't make the situation any better. Well, I'm like, well, yeah, of course, the police aren't there to make anything better. So I created that. You can do the same thing. You can figure out ways to make contributions. There's no limit except the limits of our creativity. That's the only limit. So just think about it like that. Think about how you can make a contribution collectively with your family. I'm I'm kind of stressed out because I hear noise in the other part of my house. The dog's over there. Wife is not here, but I can't leave to go see what she's doing. Lord have mercy on this dog if she's tearing up something. All right, so just think in terms of oh, okay, just think in terms of making sure that we have the capacity, or you create the capacity to work with your family and friends and do something that you know, helps you take your participation to a higher level. I think what happens a lot of times is we feel powerless. We feel that because this is what our mother's done or whoever grandmother's done, that we don't have any power to make a suggestion to do it. We just have to go along with it out of respect for them. But that's not really respecting them. It really isn't. What it is that we just don't want to deal with the work we'd have to deal with in order to, be the person that becomes the change agent. But again, I think you'll find that if you make an effort in regards to these things, a lot of the people that you're thinking will offer resistance will actually be in favor of making a change. It's a lot of pressure on people to do all that cooking every year, the same people to do that hosting. We had, like I said, 11 people here. It's a lot of cleanup involved. I spent all into Friday cleaning up, doing the things to clean up. So it's a lot of work. So a lot of people would appreciate something more collective. So think about that. Think about how you can begin to build on that kind of model. It's a very healthy way to approach this. So what in the event if people are not down, like they don't want to do anything, right? They don't want to adhere to what you're saying, right? They don't want to do anything to support what you're dealing with. Remember, colonialism has been around for centuries. So the ideas that you come up with are not necessarily going to land the first time you say them, right? That's probably not how it's going to happen. But what you have to do is you have to be willing to work with it. You can't give up. You have to be willing to work with people. Revolutionary organizing is all about that. We have to work with people all the time. People rarely ever follow through. And people say all the time, they're going to do this, they're going to do that, they're going to come. If I had a nickel for every time somebody told me they were going to come to an event, they're going to come to the self-defense class, I would be able to retire today and be in Africa. I mean, people mean well, but a lot of people just don't have discipline. They don't know how to organize their lives. They're just used to going along with the flow. They don't know how to do anything out of their normal routine. It's frightening to them to do. There's all kind of stuff. And I don't understand that because I don't live my life that way, but I know that a lot of people do. So when people tell me, yeah, I'm coming through, I'm not cynical. So every time somebody tells me they're coming through, I really sincerely hope that they do. I want to see them. I hope that they do come through. But when they don't, I'm not like upset or disappointed. I'm like, okay, we got to continue to do more work. We got to try to do more work to try to create these conditions so that they can see it as important for them to come through. That's how I look at it. It's back to the drawing board. It's consistently like that. And if you really want to seriously do this type of work, you have to be in the mental and spiritual position where you're willing to put that kind of effort into it. And if you're not, then you're not really serious about making a change. Colonialism has been around for centuries. So you're not going to turn that around in 2 weeks. It just doesn't work like that. You're going to have to see your role as that of planting seeds. You're going to have to nurture it. I love palm trees. I love palm trees. I love palm trees and pine trees, and I love palm trees to death. And I really didn't realize how much I love palm trees until I lived in Oregon for 10 years where it's too cold. There's no palm trees, and I miss them so much. And I used to love to come back here to California where I could see them. Well, now I'm back in California and I see my palm trees every day. And we've planted a few of them in our backyard. And we did that 2 years ago, 1 year ago, and they're growing. They're not growing. And, I wish they were, 4 stories in the sky like a lot of the palm trees, but it doesn't work like that. They're growing gradually. So they're nurtured, they're watered, you do all that stuff and they grow. And I see where they're starting to grow, but it takes time. So you have to understand that organizing works under the same principles. So think about trying to negotiate a compromise if you have to with your family and friends. Maybe they don't want to do all that you want to do. Maybe they want to have some presence. So then, if that's the case, Do like people do at their jobs. Put a monetary cap on the presents. Say $10 on the presents. Put a cap on it. Say nobody should be spending more than $10. That's a good thing because if you do that, then you prevent people from having to feel like they have to spend more because someone gave them a present worth $100. So they feel like they have to, they feel ashamed because theirs was only worth $15. You eliminate all that capitalist nonsense. And then some of our friends last year did something creative that was good. I wasn't like, again, I'm not into these presents and everything, and I didn't participate, but my wife did, and they had a party at their house, and there were a lot of people, like 30, 40 people there. And what they did is they had this big patio room. They sat everybody in the room and they put all the presents there, and then everybody got a present, and then there was a facilitator, and he told everybody, give the present you have to the person on the left. And they pulled cards, and they kept having to, every time they pulled a card, there were instructions for people who had the presents. Now, I was sitting there, I wasn't participating, but it was fun because people started, they opened the presents and they started seeing what they wanted, and they were hoping they could keep it. And then, you have to give it up. So I thought, I don't know if this was the intended purpose of the game, but I thought it was real positive because what it did is it made it impossible for people to attach themselves to these material possessions because you most likely weren't going to be able to keep them. So you have to focus instead on the process. And it was fun. It helped build relationships with the people there. Some of the people there, we knew very well. Some of them we didn't know at all. So, the people next to you, you crack jokes. Even though I wasn't playing, I was able to crack jokes and have fun. And so at least, if nothing else, do something like that. So it's not just this mad rush to, you're still spending the money and doing all that, but at least you're also making a contribution towards people building relationships and it being more than just this materialistic thing. At least you're doing that. So these are good things. Um, and then if you can try to instill something, if you have to compromise something, don't compromise this. Try to instill something where you can talk about the injustices in this society. Even if it's like we did Thursday, even if it's just for 5 minutes, do that. You're not trying to overwhelm people, but my thinking on that is I got to sit there and listen to bullshit all the time. I got to sit there and listen to that all the time. I got to go to people's houses and they go through the prayers and stuff, and they don't even, their prayers don't even have anything to do with injustice. I don't want to hear it because it's not real to me. If it's not dealing with injustice, it's not real to me. If you sit there, I thank God for the people that prepared the food, and that's all you say, that's bullshit to me. I don't want to hear it. But I do it. I don't disrespect it there. I'm disrespecting it now, but I don't disrespect it there because, that's their thing and I respect their thing while they're doing it. But I'm saying, why don't we just accept that? Why don't we try to do something more than that? It should be more than that. It should be way more than that. So these are opportunities to be creative, to create something that's more than that. That's all. And so finally, the end game with all this stuff is you can, we're talking about ideological struggle here. That's what all this is about. It's about a struggle over ideas. That's what all of this is about here. Everything in this society is about a struggle over ideas. The reason why they put all this propaganda into Christmas, you could turn on your television set or you can look at your phone, what comes up in your phone through social media. Whatever you do, anywhere you look, you're going to see propaganda about Christmas. The reason why it's so strong is because they're trying to control the hearts and minds of the people and get people focused on this false ideal that this is a season of giving. It's not the season of giving. Shit. It's the same season it always is in a capitalist society. It's the season of exploitation. But they want you to believe it's the season of giving and we should be warm and happy and fuzzy and drinking cocoa and eggnog splintered with alcohol, whatever you put in it. I don't know what the liquor is. You put in eggnog, whatever it is, y'all know, whatever you put in it, that's what you should be focused on and all this nonsense. So it's a struggle over ideas, because if people are focused on this nonsense, they're not thinking about the real core issues in the world. So understand that this is a struggle over ideas, and understand that because of that, it's always important to elevate the masses of people and the question of justice against the institutions of this society. So, you know, uh, Jesus represents the masses of people. The Pharisees represent the exploitative forces. The Roman Empire represents the exploitative forces. It's just that simple. You can talk about it in those terms, or whatever term you need to talk about it. But what this means is a struggle may take you a while, but don't be impatient with it. We're doing this for future generations. So whatever kind of contribution you make now is a positive contribution. Also, in order to consistently fight backward oppressive institutions, we got to be committed to building new revolutionary institutions. So you should support positive institutions that combat the backward ideas any way that you can. And I have a list of them there on the page. All right. And so with that, I want to thank you all for coming and invite you back next week, December 2nd. This year is the 56th commemoration in December of the assassination of Fred Hampton. So what we're going to do next week is we're going to assess the movie Judas and the Black Messiah, which came out in 2021, and it was about, the campaign to set up Fred Hampton for murder. It was really one of the better movies as it relates to African freedom fighters, but it still had some very serious challenges. So we want to talk about that. So join us next week. The red and white QR code in the upper left-hand corner has information on other AAPRP programs. Go to our Forward Ever shop. This hoodie I have on right now, I bought from there. They have a number of hoodies, t-shirts like that. Support our revolutionary work. If you're going to give presents, give them some presents with positive revolutionary messages. And every Thursday night, we have community self-defense. Yes, we were there this Thursday night, and there were people that came because I knew that there are a lot of people that don't have family to commemorate these hot. So even though I had a family and I was in a house and I was comfortable, I wanted to make sure people had community. So I invited people to come to the house, and some people did do that. I don't know these people. I just invited them because they come to the class and we're building community. I'm getting to know them. And then people came to the class. So this is good. So we're every week we're there 6 to 8 p.m. without fail. 2775 Cottage Way, like cottage cheese way, Unit 15 here in Sacramento. 2775 Cottage Way, Unit 15, 6 to 8 p.m. Come out, tell people. This is very important work. Learn how to exercise your mind and your body. Learn skills that can keep you safe and your loved ones safe. Join the All African People's Revolutionary Party at aaprp-intl.org. And the QR code in the bottom right, become a monthly sponsor to Burkina and Niger books. I work on the ground in Africa, and buy my book. The QR code in the upper right-hand corner, you can scan that and get and order my book, A Guide for Organizing Defense Against White Supremacist, Patriarchal, and Fascist Violence, A Guide for Organizing Defense Against White Supremacist, Patriarchal, and Fascist Violence. If you already have the book, get a book club together and read it, because you ain't read it. I appreciate you buying it, but I want you to read it because it's a good book in terms of what we're talking about here. So get a group together and read it. Order books for them. Get your library to do it. Get it in your local bookstore. These are really helpful things if people are willing to do that, right? So those are concrete ways that you can help, because 100% of the proceeds from these books I use to buy materials for anti-fascist work. So stay strong. Forward ever. Enjoy the rest of your day.